I'm Blair Broussard, Realtor with District South.
And I am Candra Scott, fellow Realtor with District South. I've been licensed for 8 years. Blair has been licensed for 4. And today we are going to be discussing some common myths and just myth busting and giving you the truths on some common misconceptions with real estate.
I love myth busting. It's honestly one of my favorite things because when you go to talk to clients and you tell them like we'll start off with sellers, for example, because you and I were talking about this recently. You go to tell them like you cannot time the market. Mm-hmm. It just like blows their mind that I'm not encouraging that.
And I think because by the time we walk in the door and meet with the seller, most sellers, they have already come up with their own game plan.
Yeah, 100%.
They know exactly what they want to do.
Yeah.
And everything's going to go exactly the way they want it.
Yeah.
So one of the first things we do is tell them, that might not be the best strategy. Obviously, we're going to do what you want, but it might not be the best strategy.
Right. It's like walking this fine line because they're like, oh yeah, let me hire a professional realtor who our full-time job is to like help them get their house sold at any point in time in the year, not just certain points of the time, in the year. Mm-hmm. And then whenever like we don't fit into their like perfectly crafted plan, it's like
you see the panic starts to happen.
Yeah, they're like, what? She has a different idea for like how this is gonna go and be successful. And I'm sure you've experienced this too, but I've had so many times where like I'll get a seller on board and mm-hmm. they, after the fact, they'll be like, well, I didn't expect to close that soon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, well, good. We're on the same page here. Like, yeah.
And absolutely no disrespect to any sellers out there. When we say you shouldn't time the market, like, first of all, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, let's break that down for us. Yeah.
So we hear a lot of people say that, okay, we're thinking about selling. We want to wait and sell in the summer or in the spring. And here's the reason why. Mm-hmm. So the most common reason why they think that's the best time, and they're not wrong. They're saying there's going to be more buyers. We're going to have the best exposure. We'll get the most money. So some of the reasons why we just feel like it doesn't always work like that, and it doesn't always, potentially not always work in your favor, is just because while you're waiting and trying to time out this market, there's so many other external factors that are going on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the other things too is like people just see like dollar signs when they mm-hmm. think about more buyers in the market because mm-hmm. there's like, oh, there's going to be more people who are going to want to buy my house. But it's the thing about myth busting, right? Is like we need to say, hey, that's a myth because guess what? Every other seller, i.e. your competition, is thinking the same way. So now these buyers who you were so excited about because they're all going to love your house, well, guess what? Now they have twice as many homes to pick from and you're not getting top dollar anymore because your competition is more fierce, right? And your competition is closer. And two, I've experienced this with my sellers who, by the time that they have kept their house up for this long, mm-hmm. they have had some issue with it. Mm-hmm. Their kids have,
they get frustrated.
Yeah, they
when
get
you
so
have
frustrated.
To keep your house in show-ready condition,
mm-hmm.
nobody lives in show-ready condition. It's nearly impossible. Maybe
not even us, right?
No,
like, our
especially
houses
not
are
us.
real homes.
Exactly.
Like,
it's very hard to live in show-ready condition.
Yeah.
So by the time you start prepping, which let's say that's now in February, to go on market for June or July, before you even hit the market, you're at 4 or 5 months of show ready-ish condition.
Yeah.
So if you don't get an offer within a month, now you're tired, you're exhausted, and you're up, you're just over it. You're done.
Right. And you're paying more upkeep on your house every month than you really want to. You're just staying there kind of frustrated in your home longer than you really want to. So really, whenever it's time to sell your home, it's when it's the right time for you.
Exactly.
And not really the right time for the market, because the market can change and flip on a dime.
Yeah.
And you can't predict it. Like us as professionals, we don't have a crystal ball, right?
I wish we did.
Yeah.
It would make things a lot easier.
I know. And the same thing. So like, let's look at the flip side of this about like, you could kind of say the same thing about buyers in like timing the market, especially in recent times when we're talking about like interest rates and those fluctuating and what that's going to be. And it's like, a lot of buyers don't know, number one, because they don't ask, right? They don't ask us. And it's like, we offer buyer consults for free where you can sit down with us and say, hey, let's make a plan. We have teams of lenders who can say, hey, here's your options. And some of those options include bringing little to no money down to the closing table. And people really just get scared off by this term interest rates. And it's like, that's not the only factor playing into your financing.
Yes.
That is a big factor, but it's not the only factor, right?
I think a lot of things, the main thing when you're trying to time something for both sides, if we want to discuss both sides, people just aren't considering, they have this one goal in mind. The seller, it's, I want the most exposure, the most amount of buyers.
Yeah.
Or the buyer is like, I want the prices to come down or the lower interest rate or whatever. They're just not considering what I call like your carrying cost.
Yeah.
And in the meantime.
Yeah.
So for the
Some
seller,
costs for that.
while you're waiting to make more money because there's going to be more buyers and you're going to get a higher, quicker offer, you're now in all these months waiting to put your house on the market, paying your mortgage every month, which is unnecessary interest, plus all your other just general costs when it comes to owning your home. And there goes the money that you're trying to save.
Yeah.
With the buyer, while you're waiting for prices to come down or interest rates to come down, it's like you're just leaving it too much uncertainty out there. So, what if that the prices come down 10 grand, but the interest rates go up 0.25%?
Kind of is a wash.
Yeah, correct.
That's definitely a
so
wash.
We both feel that the best time for a buyer and a seller to make that next step, whatever it is when the numbers personally make sense for you.
100%.
And
100%,
we can get you a good game plan, and we know where you can have your next steps ready to go. Yeah. So the best time to time it is when you are ready and the numbers make sense for you personally. Yeah. Other Mythbuster.
Yeah.
So we also wanted to discuss geared towards the buyers. I know we touched on them, but a big thing that we run into with buyers and buyers of all, first time home buyers, fifth time home buyers, any budget, is that I think a lot of buyers feel that financing is kind of a one size fits all thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you want to talk a little bit about all the different...
Yeah, there's so many different options. And I was going to mention this like just a second ago whenever you were talking about waiting for interest rates, and timing the market in that way. The contract has a specific portion of the contract where it says, you have to present the seller with your loan terms within an X amount of days. Okay. Right. So of going under contract. So there are protections for you as the buyer in the contract for you to be able to exactly specify your financial terms and what those are going to be to the seller, okay, within a certain time frame. And I think that it's important that buyers know that, because now you can really get down in the nitty gritty and you can say, look, I know exactly what my monthly note is going to be, including interest, taxes, and insurance, right, for that specific property. And that's why it's so important that you really get your financing done ahead of time, because that lender who you work with, and we each have our preferred lenders who we send our people to, that lender is going to say, hey, here's an estimated amount. And then once you narrow down exactly which property you want to put an offer in on, they can say, per this exact property, I have your HOA, your interest, your taxes, your insurance. And too, this is kind of down a rabbit hole, but like, that's why you don't need to see 10 houses, right? You need to see 5 houses or 6 houses and then make a decision from there, right? You're going to get more exact numbers the more you whittle it down. And I think too, the financing option of it, you and I both have had buyers come to the table and they're like, this is a lot less than I expected to spend. And it's because you and I are, number one, always going to negotiate the price, right? We're going to look at surrounding comps and make sure the home is priced right. And we're going to work with local lenders who are real people and they know what they can get in terms of grants or assistance or, you know, whatever that can help them.
So that's really what I wanted to touch on as well with, I think just a common misconception with the financing and the one size fits all. It's just starting. Yeah. Because a lot of people won't start. They're either scared or, you know, their cousin said, well, I tried and it didn't work. Yeah. And the person's like, well, I mean, me and my cousin make the same amount of money. Like, we, you know, this, that, and the other. I think it's just very important to start. You know, people come with us and they're like, I saw this house. I want to go see it. I love it. Financing in place, have never talked to anybody. And I do think fear just stops a lot of people, but I really just want people to understand and know that financing is not a one size fits all type of thing. And just because it didn't work for your cousin doesn't mean it's not going to work for you, because there's so many different ways around things. And everybody has different, like the importance of working with good lenders, local lenders. Because if you're to the point to where you go and you do, and when we say start, we're talking about that pre-approval, that pre-qualification, the word that y'all don't like. But if you're to the point and it's just a no and that's it, you might be with the wrong lender, because they should be able to give you a general guideline of what you can do and an estimate about how long it would take. Everything's different for everybody. Okay?
Wait. When you say that, when you say how long it can take, you're referencing how long it can take to get your credit and or your down payment amount to the place it needs to be.
I've had lenders, you know, whatever it is that's holding you up. That I strongly feel like when you go get pre-approved and you're not instantly pre-approved, it's never a no. It's just a not right now.
I tell my people the same thing. I strongly
feel that.
I do too.
So my lenders will, for the most part, they can tell them, hey, if we work on this, this, and this, within about 3 to 6 months, we can probably have you pre-approved.
And that's why I want to go back to something you said just a second ago. I think it's so important that everyone hears this. You said that's why it's so important that you start, right? Right. And what does it mean to start? It will run your credit. Yes. That's going to happen. It has to happen. Yes.
Because nobody wants their credit pulled.
Right. They're like, oh my God, terrified. Like, don't run my credit. Don't run my credit. And it's like, look, you're not being called into the principal's office. It's okay. You know, let's run your credit. And no one's judging you. This is a judge-free zone. I'm not.
We don't even see it, y'all.
We don't
see it.
We don't see it. But everyone's like, oh my gosh, they're gonna see my credit. We don't see it. Okay, your lender's the only one who sees it. And like you were saying, if it's a no based on your credit, it's basically it should be a not right now.
Correct.
And then what you were saying,
and then some of the things that I think a lot of people don't know is. There's basic guidelines out there. My credit has to be 640. I have to have a 2-year job history. I have to have this. I have to have that. There's ways around a lot of stuff, y'all.
Especially a lot of people are like self-employed. Yes. And self-employed looks so different. I actually just filled out an application for like my son's school, and I loved this. There was a checkbox for self-employed, and then there was a checkbox for commission. Yes. Right. So like, what kind of income are you getting? Right. And yeah, to your point, there's so many different ways.
Pre-approval process is going to look different from, you know, a W-2.
Right.
Other pre-approval process. Some other things that I can think of off the top of my head is people that have recently graduated. They don't actually need a 2-year job history. If they're working in the field that their degree is in, most people don't know your college education, that's your 2-year job history.
Yeah, let's face it, you don't have job history.
Right. But a lot of what you have. People that just graduated, you know, they'll continue renting. They won't buy a house just because they don't have the knowledge and the understanding that
They don't think they're ready or capable.
Right. And you don't fit into the regular box of this is what I need for pre-approval.
Right.
So also there's so many grants. There's a lot of grants.
The city does a lot of grants.
Yeah.
I know
income-based grants, career-based grants.
Right.
And when we say grants, that can be money for down payment, towards closing costs, and those don't have to be paid back.
Yeah. And sometimes too, like depending on which lender, like I had a client go under contract today actually, and we went through like 7 different lenders because one would say, look, I can't do it, but here's somebody who can.
Right.
And each lender that we talked to got us closer and closer and closer to the person who was like, oh yeah, no problem, I can do it. So I think too, it's like you said, it's just getting over that fear of just like starting.
Right.
Because then you'll find out like, yeah, I'm a college graduate, but I can be a homeowner as a college graduate because I started and I figured out how to do it.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, man, we're a wealth of knowledge.
we are.
I mean,
we can
honestly.
go on.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to continue myth busting throughout the rest of the spring here. We'll have a couple more episodes for you guys. You can follow along on social media. I'm on Instagram. I have an email newsletter website, blairbroussard.com.
Also, if there's any specific questions that you want us to discuss in our next episode, this is where you can find us, and like our pages, follow us, and you can DM or
DMs are open, as they say.
Either one of us,
DMs are
and
open.
we'll work in your question, your misconception, whatever it is you want us to talk about. Thanks, y'all.